Welcome to The Beginner's Guide to all things economic, political, and sociocultural. Here we will be sharing quick bites into all the topics, concepts, and theories that we all talk about but should probably know a little more about. Each episode we will be discussing the basics of a single topic, giving you a glimpse of what the topic actually is, where it comes from, and how we see it in the world today. If I'm being honest, we could spend hours on each topic and still have plenty to talk about. Some of the topics are going to be pretty straightforward, and some are going to be, well, let's just say that most of these things have been long debated by politicians, philosophers, economists, and nowadays, everyone on Twitter. I'll be doing my best to keep it all unbiased, to the point, and hopefully interesting enough to inspire you to dig a little deeper on your own. With all that being said, I'm your host, Emmy Davis, and this is a beginner's guide to free market economies. What do you think of when you hear the words free markets or its close relative, capitalism? For a lot of people, something having to do with Wall Street or big business pops up. For some, a local family-owned business or a tech startup. All of those would be right, but none of them would give you the correct understanding of what a free market economy really is. A textbook-sounding definition goes something like this. A free market is one where voluntary exchange and the laws of supply and demand, or the invisible hand phenomena, later coined by the economist Adam Smith, provide the sole basis for the economic system without government intervention. A less textbook-sounding definition would go something like this. A free market economy is one that is based on the fundamental belief that all humans are equal, and therefore, every transaction should be based on mutual consent and trusting that each side will uphold their end of the agreement. Basically, as long as you don't hurt other people or steal their stuff, and so long as you keep your word, you're free to do whatever you want, work for whoever you want, love and marry whoever you want, worship whoever or whatever you want, and trade with whoever you want. Those are essentially the main rules of participating in a free market economy. Not all economic systems are considered market economies, let alone free market economies. To be classified as simply a market economy, two fundamental principles must be present: voluntary exchange and private property. Quick side note. While it is completely possible for trade to occur without voluntary exchange or private property, it would no longer be classified as a market economy. Instead, this would be called a command or centralized economy. To be considered a free market economy, all transactions must be free of any sort of coercion. This is why I would argue that there is no country in the world today that can claim to have a purely free market economy. In one way or another, every economy has various degrees of constraints imposed by the country's political and legal rules. When it comes to the market economy spectrum, some countries are far closer to a free market economy than others. Another quick side note. I mentioned that capitalism was a close relative to the free market. This is true, the main one being their use of the law of supply and demand. Capitalism, though, refers to the creation of wealth and ownership of capital, production, and distribution, and leaves some room for government regulations and interventions. The free market, though, stays more tightly in the bounds of simply the free exchange of goods and services, free of any government interference. Today, most economies are a hodgepodge of economic theories. Capitalism and free market principles are almost always mixed and matched, so they're really easy to get mixed up. Okay, done with that side note. At its most basic level, the idea and implementation of free market principles stretch back as far as history has revealed. Before there was even an official name for it, before there were official monetary systems, banks, and federal governments, humans kept it simple by exchanging goods and services directly with each other. No money, no middleman. You may remember the term barter system from elementary school. As far as we can tell, agricultural goods were the hot commodity to have and trade. Makes sense. Currency in the monetary sense we know today did not show up until roughly 600 BC. Metallic coins minted in China and Mesopotamia are currently the earliest known examples we have of an item that sole function was monetary. There is some evidence that a monetary banking system was utilized in Mesopotamia and ancient Rome. However, banking and the reliance on a minted currency did not take hold on a mass scale until the 15th century. Despite a strong initial resistance from the church, many people in Europe began to see how it could reshape entrepreneurship, business, and trade. It should go without saying that private property, even in just the conceptual sense, goes as far back as the free market itself. After all, you kind of need to own something in order to participate in any sort of trade. Now, the turning of the concept into an official system of private ownership and production, no longer exclusive to the government, was not fully articulated until the 17th and 18th century, when John Locke hit the scene. Locke felt that the right to private property fell under an individual's natural right endowed by God and not by the government. Since then, the likes of the 18th century's moral philosopher and economist, Adam Smith, and the 19th century's economist and philosopher, Karl Marx, have provided analysis and insights into the concept of private property. Personally, I like to think of current-day economies as a spectrum, with free on one end and command on the other. How things like private property are applied and the level of government involvement dictate where on the spectrum a particular country's economy falls. There is generally a wide consensus among economists that the closer the market economy is to the free side of the spectrum, the greater the economic freedom and well-being for those who are participating in it is. For example, you may have heard of the Heritage Foundation or Freedom House. The Heritage Foundation is a leading think tank based out of Washington, D.C., and Freedom House is the oldest American nonprofit bipartisan organization dedicated to the advocacy and protection of democratic human rights. Both organizations release annual reports which rate and document the human and economic freedoms of each country around the globe. Both apply the principles of a free market economy, along with other factors, to calculate a score that reflects the overall freedoms of each country's citizens. According to the Heritage Foundation's 2022 Index of Economic Freedom, Singapore's economy, followed by Switzerland and Ireland, can be considered the freest. Singapore earned its spot thanks to their prudent monetary and fiscal policies, their robust trade freedoms, their high degrees of legal protection around property rights, and their government accountability. By examining these types of reports, or simply taking a moment to check out the World tab of your news website of choice, it doesn't take long to see that there really is a strong correlation between economic freedoms and civil freedoms. There's something to be said for the fact that the most prosperous countries in the world value their free market principles above those of a command economy. Competition in the marketplace has gotten a bad rap lately, but without it, technological advancements, consumer influence, and the chance for economic growth quickly dissipate. Removing competition removes the incentive to keep pushing for better. Removing consumer influence removes society's ability to demand better, more ethical, more eco-friendly, more whatever is important to you products. When an economy becomes more centralized and things begin to be allocated for the government to handle, the harder it is for your average person to turn a great idea into a product, or turn years of hard work into a better life for themselves and their family. Essentially, the more the government has control over, the less room there is for everyone else to participate. Granted, every economic system does have its major pitfalls, both by the nature of the system and by the implementation of it. A free market economy puts the responsibility and the power in the hands of the citizenry. Other economic systems place that responsibility and power elsewhere. But that's a conversation for another time. This has been the Beginner's Guide to Free Market Economies, and I'm your host, Emmy Davis. This podcast is a Subject Entertainment production for Free Markets Destroy, a project of the Washington Policy Center. Free Markets Destroy celebrates the power of free markets to tackle humanity's most daunting challenges. The world isn't perfect, but it's getting better every day thanks to entrepreneurs who work tirelessly to deliver life-changing innovations. Washington Policy Center is a nonpartisan, nonprofit public policy research organization that publishes studies, sponsors events, and educates citizens on vital public policy issues. For more information on either, check out freemarketsdestroy.com or washingtonpolicy.org. As always, thanks for listening, and do your own research.